Yell hip hooray and sing and shout, the blooming range is counted out. Rejoice ye all and everyone, we've changed the name to Lavington. At 8 o'clock the hall was full, and the organ roared like Barney's bull. Then someone tried a song to sing, and we all yelled, God save the King. Now the club they called the Glee began to sing most awfully, and when the bass put in and spoke, 'twould break the heart of Charlie's Oak. Then someone yapped and newt the range, and someone spoke re Lavington. We all agreed we liked the change, and while we gormandised like fun, now after the hall was cleared, and all the men who were not bid danced and sang, and ere the morning sun, we unhooked 3 cheers for Lavington. Yes, well, there was a Progress Association meeting in 1908, about November 1908, and the 2 of the subjects at the meeting was firstly to apply to the Crown for 20 acres of recreational ground, and the second was to change the name from Black Range to whatever. They then between themselves put the name Lavington Forward, and the meeting was happy with that, because at the time there was already a hotel named the Lavington, and the original gold stamper that arrived here in 1865 was also commissioned the Lavington, and one of the 2 former hotels in this area, in the Black Range area, was also called the Lavington. So they settled on the name Lavington, and they asked the PMG to gazette it, and in due course they did.
I've been in this street since 1918. This house wasn't there, Ben. The little house down the below, that's where Tommy Pearsall was born. And I think I bathed him more mornings going to school than his mother did.
Do you remember that during the war they had something called the Lavington Follies with the young girls in it? Do you remember that?
Oh, they were always getting something together. We used to always have once a year fruit down the hall, and we'd have it for 2 days, Friday and Saturday, and they'd have all the competitions, jams and everything, and we'd have a big, you sit there, seen the pyramid of apples? That used to be in the wood shop, and they'd have a great time, but I don't know about the follies. And, oh yes, I do, yes, I was one of them in it. Oh, Christ. Oh yes, I remember them, now I come to think of it. You're just little egg. It was very, very amateur. I can tell you that. I don't know how I managed it.
The old horse was very common. He was used in the paddocks. He was used carting wood, carting water. Quite a few were ridden to school. There was quite a few people rode a horse to school. The school had its own horse paddock, and one of the teachers also drove a horse and sulky. The bread was carted in the baker's cart during the war, sometimes by a women driver. The green grocer come round with the veggies in the cart. The ice people come round with the ice in the horse-drawn wagon. We came to Lavington in 1941, and all the vehicles those days were, you know, basically the square models. They were 27 Chevy Utes, the old 1911 Beams, Durantes, overlanded Whippets. They were really old, square, truck-type utilities. But there were very few cars, you know, in the early days. And then after the end of the Second World War, with reduction back in America and Britain, there was quite an influx of cars, and they found their way to Albury quite readily. You know, there was 47, 48, there was new Chevs and Pontiacs and Hillmans and Humbers from Britain.
Old Dick Martin had about 1 bus. That's the fellow that started it up, and he had a big garage in the back of his house there to shed the buses, and then eventually bought more land down in Bellevue Street and built 3 or 4 great big sheds as he got bigger and got more buses. During the war they had great big gas bags up on top, and that'd do him about 3 trips from Albury to Lavington on his bus run, and he'd have to go back and fill her up again. Petrol was rationed, you'd only get a few gallons. And them people, if you only had a private car, you might only get 4 or 5 gallons for the month. You just had to be very careful where you used it.
Clothing was rationing in the form that you had to provide coupons to buy them, and butter and tea, of course, the same. And so each family, according to the number of children, was allocated by the government a certain number of coupons, and when they were gone, that was it. Even if you had the money, you wouldn't be able to purchase the goods, and tobacco and so forth. That was, whilst I don't know there was so much, wasn't coupons for tobacco. It was rationed. It was what referred to as under the counter. And if you was to go into a tobacconist or a general store and ask for cigarettes or tobacco, unless you were well known, a local, the answer would be that there was none for sale. But if you were well known, he'd simply put his hand under the counter and pick out a packet of tobacco or a packet of cigarettes and duly sold them.
I don't know, we thought they were all good times in the old days. We always make our own fun, and everything was good. One time you could get around, never shut your doors, do anything, just walk out and everything would be there when you come back, but it's not now.
Ferreting and setting traps, rabbiting, catching rabbits was a thing sort of occupied so many children on the weekend, both as a form of meat for the house and also pocket money. And I know as a young child, 8 or 9, we had a particular customer who had an order for a half-grown rabbit every Saturday morning to be delivered at 10 a.m, 6 delivered to the door.
I used to tell my grandkids, my daughter's got 3 boys, they don't know they're alive. We used to ride from over in Urana Road down to where the Albury Pool is now for a swim of a Sunday. We'd have 6pence, it'd be 3pence for old Mr. Roxburgh to get into the gate of the pool. You'd have 3pence for an ice cream or something after you had a swim for 2 or 3 hours, and then you'd ride the bike home again. And they used to go down to Moore Street Pool, their mother would drive them down in the car and go back down and pick them up again. I say, you blokes don't know you're alive.
Well, I wasn't nearly going to go on with that, but the old sanitary card McKinley and Lennon was the two people who had the contract, and it seemed to be the go that when it got to our place, it must have been time to shuffle the cans, and there would be a great racket out there for 10 minutes or so as they pushed the full ones to the front and the empty ones to the back, and in due course they'd roar off to the next house. Yeah.
And it was a very hard 4 years, when those firebugs were around, because we had property on one side of the hill and the other side of the hill, and they set fire to both sides. But up the other way they burnt down hay sheds, the shearing shed, which we'd only just put a $6,000 new shearing plant into it. It was used once and then burnt to the ground. And there was a hay shed up further, they burnt that down. We replaced it and they burnt it down again. Ron, my son Ron, he went up and he went up and he thought, my goodness, it's burnt down again. So he started to come home to tell his dad, and he thought, oh, is it burnt down? So he turns around and goes back to make sure. He got such a shock he couldn't really take it all in. There was always someone on the property, night and day. The younger ones used to go out, but Ron and I were always at home because we had a big packing shed
Weekend,